Hello, welcome, Heratopandas. We're going to be reading from a very short little book called Gorgias's Encomium of Helen, and I'm going to be reading both the English translation and the original Greek side by side, as I've done so many times on my channel. The topic that this is going to be is on Helen of Troy, and so it is a very, very, very famous topic. It should be pretty easy to follow. The reason I am reading it in English as well as in Greek, of course, is not just because some people don't understand the Greek, but because even I myself and a lot of students of ancient Greek have a hard time just understanding audibly ancient Greek, especially with the modern pronunciation. But I have to say, not just especially modern pronunciation, I think even ancient pronunciation, it's something that's not being trained so much nowadays for comprehension by hearing. So that's one of the things I'm going to work on. Also, just a quick note, I'm going to be using the pronunciation that is called usually modern pronunciation. It is a very ancient pronunciation going way back, probably at least 2,000 years, if not more, pronouncing certain sounds the way they still pronounce them today. Chances are this was not how the original ancient Greeks were speaking phonetically in the classical period, but that is not my attempt. There are too many different potential ways Greek could have been pronounced for me to feel confident that, hey, I'm pronouncing it exactly like they did in the 4th century, 5th century BC. Instead, I'd rather pronounce it like I pronounce Greek when I'm saying my prayers, and like modern Greek speakers that actually speak Greek today, how they pronounce the words. Again, that is my thoughts, and I understand that that's an opinion not shared by that many classicists. The only classicists I know of who share that opinion are people who are native Greeks and potentially very few who are not native Greeks. And I think mainly it's because the pronunciation is different enough that if you don't learn ancient Greek with the pronunciation being spoken in modern Greece, it could seem strange. And so it just seems like just different. But for me, I attempt to use the same pronunciation as in the Divine Liturgy. If the Divine Liturgy, we have things like, whatever. If it's like, in Irini tu Kyrie the Thoman, or whether it's anything. Isto onima tu betrosko tu yuki tu pneumatos, anything like that. If we are at least using the same pronunciation as we do in church, I think that it's easier to understand it audibly. But again, this is, like I said, an opinion not shared by everybody, but only some people. And most of those people live in Greece. Okay, that being said, we're going to read a short little thing written by Gorgias called in English Gorgias's Encomium of Helen. And I am going to read a paragraph and go back and forth. I think that's the easiest way for me to follow it, is to read a paragraph in English, read the same in Greek, and go back and forth a few times. If somebody is watching this and is not familiar with Greek at all, I would almost advise that you don't even watch it at all. And if you are very familiar with Greek and you are like, why in the world are you reading it in English? I understand exactly what you're saying in Greek. Feel free to make your own YouTube video and read it just in Greek, and don't read any English, and be the first in the whole world to publish on YouTube for free the Encomium of Helen in Greek, read by a Greek native speaker, without any English. And I would definitely listen to your version if you feel obligated to do so. Oh, that being said, I'm going to start at the beginning, and this should not take too long. So we'll see how this goes. The grace of a city is the excellence of its men, and a body, beauty, of a mind, wisdom, of an action, virtue, of a speech, truth. The opposites of these are a disgrace. A man, a woman, a speech, a deed, a city, and an action. If deserving praise, one should honor with praise, but to the undeserving one should attach blame. For it is an equal error and ignorance to blame the praiseworthy and to praise the blameworthy. The man who says rightly what ought to be said should also refute those who blame Helen a woman about whom both the belief of those who have listened to poets and the message of her name, which has become a reminder of the calamities, have been in unison and unanimity. I wish by adding some reasoning to my speech to free the slandered woman from the accusation and to demonstrate that those who blame her are lying, and both to show what is true and to put a stop to their ignorance. Okay, that is the first two sections, and now that same passage, Stinelinika. Cosmos, Poli, Men, Ev, Andrea, Somati the Kalos, Psyche the Sophia, Pragmati the Arati, Logo the Alethea. Tada Anandia, Tuton, Akos Mia, Andra the Kegineka, Ke Logon, Ke Ergon, Ke Polin, Ke Pragma, Kri Tomen Oxion, Epenu, Epeno Timon, To the Onyxio, Momon, Epithena. Isigar Amartia Ke Apathia, Signomi, Amartia Ke Amathia, Memphis, Teta Ep anata ke epenin ta momita. To the af tu anthros, lexe te to theon orthos, ke alexa tus memphomenus elenin, gineka periis homophonos, kai amo psychos, gagonen, Iteton piton, accusandon, pistis, itetu anomatos, femi, otha symphoron, mimni, gagonen. Ego the volume, logismon tina to logo thus, tin men kakos, accusoson, pavsa tis etias. Tus the memphomenus, Pseudomanus epidixa, ke dixa te alithes, ke pavsa tis apathias. Amathias, signami, my apologies. Apathia is a different thing. This is amathia, ignorance. That the woman who is the subject of this speech was preeminent and among preeminent men and women by birth and descent is not obscure, even to a few. It is clear that her mother was Leda, and her actual father was a god, and her reputed father a mortal, Tindarius and Zeus, of whom the one was believed to be because he was, and the other was reputed to be because he said he was, and the one was the best of men, and the other a master of all. Born of such parents, she had godlike beauty, which she acquired and had openly. In very many, she created very strong amorous desires. With a single body, she brought together many bodies of men who had great pride for great reasons. Some of them had great amounts of wealth, others fame of ancient nobility, others rigor of personal strength, others power of acquired wisdom. And they all came because of a love which wished to conquer and a wish for honor which was unconquered, who fulfilled his love by obtaining Helen. And why and how I shall not say, for to tell those who know what they know carries conviction but does not give pleasure. Passing over now in my speech that former time, I shall proceed to the beginning of my intended speech, and I shall propound the causes which made it reasonable for Helen's departure to Troy to occur. Oti men un thesi, ke geni ta prota, ton proton and throne ke ginecon, igini periis oda ologos uk adilon uda oligis. Dilon gar os mitros men lidas patros the tu men genomenu theou legomenu the thnitu. Tindhario ke theos. On omen diato ina edoxen. O the diatophana electhi ke in omen andron kratistos o the pandon tyrannos. Ek tiuton the genomeni eske to isotheon kalos. O lavusa ke u lathusa eske. Plistos the plistis epithemias erotos en irgasato. En either somati pola somata sinigagen andron epi megalis mega phronundon. On emen plutu megathi. Either Evgenias Paleas Evthuxion. Either Alkis Ideas Evixion. Either Sophias Epictetu Thinamin Escon. Ke econ apondes Iperotos te Philoniku Philotimias te Anikitu. Ostis menun ke the oti ke opos epliseton erota tin elenin lavon ulexo. Ugartis idosin isasi legin pistin menaki. Terpsin the uferi. Ton chronon the to logo ton tote nin per vas epitinarchin tu melondos logu provisime. Ke prothesime tas etias the as ecos in genesthe ton tis elenis istin trion stolon. Either it was because of the wishes of chance and the purposes of the gods and the decrees of necessity that she did what she did, or because she was seized by force, or persuaded by speeches, or captivated by love. Now, if it was because of the first, the accuser deserves to be accused. For it is impossible to hinder a god's predetermination by human preconsideration. It is not natural for the stronger to be hindered by the weaker, but for the weaker to be governed and guided by the stronger, and for the stronger to lead and the weaker to follow. A god is a strong thing, a stronger thing than a human being, both in force and in wisdom and in other respects. So if the responsibility is to be attributed to chance and God, Helen is to be released from the infamy. Igartikis vu limasi, ke theon vu levmasi, ke anankis psi phismasin, eproxen a eproxen. Evia arpasthesa, logis pisthesa, eroti alusa, men diat proton, axios etiastha, o etiomenos, theugar pro Thebian, anthropini pro Mythia, adinaton coliin, pefikagar uto crison, Ipo tu isonos coliasta, alatoison, ipo tu crisonos archasta, ke agasta, to men crison igista, to the ison epista. Theos the anthropu crison, ke via, que Sophia, que ti salis, un titihi, que to theo, tin ation anatheteon, tin elenin tis these clias apoliteon. But if she was seized by force and unlawfully violated and unjustly assaulted, clearly the man who seized or assaulted did wrong, and the woman who was seized or was assaulted suffered misfortune. The barbarian who undertook a barbaric undertaking in speech and in law and indeed deserves to receive accusation in speech, debarment in law, and punishment indeed. But the woman who was violated and deprived of her country and bereaved of her family, would she not reasonably be pitied rather than reviled? He performed terrible acts, she suffered them. So it is just to sympathize with her, but to hate him. Either via ir pasti, que anomos eviasti, que adicos ivristi, vilonoti o arpasos I ivrisas I dikisen. Either arpastina I ivristina elistikisen. Axiosun omen epichiresis varvaros varvaron epichirema ke logo ke nomo ke ergo logo men etias. Nomo the atimias ergo the zimias tichin. Either viasthisa, que tis patridos sterithisa, que ton philon orphans thisa, pos ugon e kotos aleithii, malon e kakologithii, o mengar ethrasa thina, either epatha, Vikeon un teen men iktirin ton the misisen. But if it was speech that persuaded and deceived her mind, it is also not difficult to make a defense for that and to dispel the accusation. Thus, speech is a powerful ruler. Its substance is minute and invisible, but its attachments, its achievements are superhuman. For it is able to stop fear and to remove sorrow and to create joy and to augment pity. I shall prove that this is so. I must also prove it by my opinion to my heroes. I shall also prove it by opinion to my hearers. Either logos o pisas ke team psychin apatisis u the prostituto chalapon apo logisista ke tina tian apo lisista otha. Logos dynastin megas estin. Os smicrotato somati ke afanastato theotata erga apotali vinata gar ke fovon pavsa ke lipin aphelin ke koran anergasista ke aleon apav exaxisa tafta the os utos aki dixo the ke thoxi dixa tis akuusi. All poetry I consider and call speech with meter. Into those who hear it comes fearful fright and tearful pity and mournful longing. And at the successes as failures of others' affairs and persons, the mind suffers through speeches a suffering of its own. Teen piisin apasan kenomizo ke onomazo logon ekonda metron. Is tusaku ondas isiltha ke friki periphavos ke eleos polydacris ke pothos philopenthes ep allotrion ke pragmaton ke somaton ev tichias ke these pergias Idion ti pathima diaton logon epithen ipsyche. Now then let me move from one speech to another. Inspired incantations through speeches are induced of pleasure and reducers of sorrow. By intercourse with the mind's belief, the power of the incantation enchants and persuades and moves it by sorcery. Two arts of sorcery and magic have been invented. They are deviations of mind and deceptions of belief. Fera thee pros alon op alu metasto logon. Agar en thei thea logon ep uthe ep agogi idhonis. Apagogi lipis gignonda. Si gignomeni gar tidhoxi tis psychis idhinamis tis ep odhis. Ethelxe ke apise ke metestisen aftin goitia. Goitias the ke magias the set techna every day. Eisin psychis amartimata ke thoxis patimata. How many men have persuaded and do persuade how many on how many subjects by fabricating false speech? For if everyone on every subject possessed memory of the past and understanding of the present and foreknowledge of the future, speech would not be equally powerful. But as it is, neither remembering a past event, nor investigating a present one, nor prophesying a future one is easy, so that on most subjects, most men make belief their mind's advisor. But belief, being slippery and unreliable, brings slippery and unreliable success to those who employ it. So what reason is there against Helen's also having come under such the influence of speech, just as much against her will as if she had been seized by violence of violators? For persuasion expels sense, and indeed persuasion, though not having an appearance of compulsion, has the same power. For speech, the persuader compelled mind, the persuaded both to obey and what was said to approve what was done. So the persuader, because he compelled, is guilty, but the persuaded, because she was compelled by his speech, is wrongly reproached. Osida osus perioson ke apison ke pithusi the psi the logon plasandes emengar pondes peripondon econ tone par ecomenon minimim tone the parondon anion tone the melondon peronion uk on omios in ologos. Allah nin the ute mnisthina to parichomenon ute skepsista to paron ute montevista to melon ev poros echi oste periton pleiston e pleisti tin thoxan sim vulon tipsi ki parekonda Either doxa sphalera ke aveveos usa sphaleres ke aveveis te evtichias perivali tus av ti cramenus. Tis unetia colii ke tin elenin imnos ilthen omios on unean usan. Osberi va via Tyrion via irpasti. Togartis pithus exine, o thenus keti ananki o ethos eximen un. Tin the thenamine tin af tin aki. Logos gar psychin o pisas in episen enankasen ke pithasta tis ligamenis ke sin nessa tis piumenis o men un pisas os anakasas adiki. Either pistisa os anakastisa to logo martin akui kakos. To show that persuasion, when added to speech, also molds the mind in the way it wishes, one should note first the speeches of astronomers, who, substituting belief for belief, demolishing one and establishing another, make the incredible and obscure become clear to the eyes of belief. And secondly, compulsory contests conducted by means of speeches, in which a single speech pleases and persuades a large crowd, because written with skill, not spoken with truth. And thirdly, conflicts of philosophical speeches, in which it is shown that quick-wittedness, too, makes the opinion which is based on belief changeable. The power of speech bears the same relation to the ordering of mind as the ordering of drugs bears to the constitution of bodies. Just as different drugs expel different humors from the body, and some stop it from being ill and others stop it from living, so too some speeches cause sorrow, some cause pleasure, some cause fear, some give the hearers confidence, some drug and bewitch the mind with an evil persuasion. Otide e pitho prosiusa to logo ke team sihin etiposito opos avulato cri mathin proton men tus ton meterologon logus etines thoxon andi thoxis teen men aphalomani teen the energasomani ta apista ke avila fenista tis thoxis omacine epison. Thefteron the tus anakeus, the ya logon agonas, en is logos polin, oklon eterpse, ke epise techni graphis uk alithea, like these, triton the philosophon logon amilas, en es Vignite ke gnomis tacos os ev metavolon piun tin tisoxis pistin. Tone of tone, the logon, echi tu logo dynamis. Prostin tis psychis toxin, tone pharmacon toxis, prostin ton somaton physin, ospergar ton pharmacon alus ala chimus, ectusomatos, exagi, keta men nosu, ta the viu, pavi, o uto ke ton logon emen elipison, either eterpson, either ephovison, either is tharsos katestison, tus acuondas, either pithi tini kaki timsikin, ex f or mekifson, k egoitefson. If she was persuaded by speech, it was not a misdeed, but a mischance, has been stated. And I shall examine the fourth cause in the fourth part of my speech. If it was love that brought all this about, she will with whole difficulty escape the accusation of the offense said to have been committed. Things that we see do not have the nature which we wish them to have, but the nature which each of them actually has. And by seeing them as the mind is molded in its character too, for instance, when the sight surveys hostile persons and a hostile array of bronze and iron for hostile armament, offensive array of the one and shields of the other, it is alarmed, and it alarms the mind, so that often people flee in panic with some danger when some danger is imminent, as if it were present. So strong is the disregard of the law, which is implanted in them because of the fear caused by the sight. When it befalls, it makes them disregard both the honor which is awarded for obeying the law and the benefit which accrues for doing right. And some people before now, on seeing frightful things, have also lost their presence of mind at the present moment. Fear so extinguishes and expels thought, and many have fallen into groundless distress and terrible illnesses and incurable madness. So deeply does sight engrave on the mind images of actions that are seen, and as far as frightening things are concerned, many are omitted, but those omitted are similar to those mentioned. Ke otimen ilogo episti, uk idikisen, al itikisen, irite. Tin the teratin etian to tetarto logo dieximi. Igareros in otaftapanda praxis. Ukalapos the fevxeta tin tis legomenes genonana amortius etian. Agar oromen ehi fisin inimis thalaman all in ekastone etike via the tis opsios ipsichi con tis tropis tiputa of tikagar oton polemia somata ke polemion epipolemia oplisi cosmon kalhu ke sithiru tu men alexiterion tu the problemata epitheasi te eopsis et tarachi ke etaraxa tin psychin osta palakis kindinu tu melondos os ondos psev gusin ek plagendas iskira gar amelia tu nomu thia ton fovon is okisti ton apotis opseos itis elthusa epiisen amelisa ke tu kalu tu thia ton Diatonomon krinomenu K2 agathu 2 diatin dikin genomenu Idi the tinus idondes fovara K2 parondos en to parondi chrono fro nematos exestisan utos apes visa ke exilasa ophobos to no ima poli the mateis ponis ke the nes gnosis ke the siatis manias periepasan utos e konas ton oromenon pragmaton e opsis energerapsen entofronimati ke ta men the matunda pola men paralipata omia the sti ta paralipomena iaper ta legomena. But when painters complete out of many colors and objects a single object and form, they please the sight. The making of figures and the creation of statues provides a pleasant disease for the eyes. Many things create in many people and desire of many actions and bodies. So if Helen's eyes, pleased by Alexander's body, transmitted an eagerness and striving of love to her, what is surprising? If love is a god and a god's power, how would the weaker be able to repel and resist it? But if it is a human malady, an incapacity of mind, it should not be blamed as an impropriety, but considered as an adversity. For it comes, when it does come, through deceptions of mind, it intends of thought, and through compulsions of love, not contrivances of skills. And thank you to watching in the chat. If you have any more questions, you can always say it in the chat, and I will have a short discussion after I'm finished, which is probably pretty soon. I only got one paragraph left to read, or two short ones. So how should one consider the blame of Helen just, whether she did what she did because she was enamored by sight, or persuaded by speech, or seized by force, or compelled by divine necessity? In every case, she escapes the accusation. I have removed by my speech a woman's infamy. I have kept the purpose which I set myself at the start of my speech. I attempted to dispel injustice of blame and ignorance of belief. I wish to write the speech of an encomium of Helen and an amusement for myself. Okay, I have another few lines to read in Greek. That is the end of this section. And I do see in the chat there is Beast something 7. Feel free to write more in the chat. I will answer it whenever. Remind me how long maybe you've been a subscriber, and I do not have any idea which of my subscribers you are. So remind me, and we can talk in a second. Okay, so last little bit, and then we'll be done. Alamin e graphis otan ek polon chromaton kesomaton en soma keschema telion apergasanda terpusi tin opsin either ton andriandon piisis ke ton agal maton ergasia noson ethion parascato tisomasin uto tamen lipin ta the terpene pafica tinopsin pola the police polon erota ke pothon energazata pragmaton kisomaton un to Alexandru somati totis elanis oma then prothemion ke amilan erotos tipsi he parethoka. Teeth of my stone. Os e men theos. Acon theon thenamine. Post on oison two tone posista ke aminista thenatos. Either steen anthropinon nosima ke psychis agnomima. Ugos amartima mempteon. All os atichima nomisteon. Ilthagar os iltha psychis agramasin ugnomis vulevmasi ke erotos anankes u technis poroskeves. Pos un cri dikeon egisus the ton tis elenis momon. Etis ita opsi ergasthesa ita logo pisthesa ita via arpasthesa ita ipotheas anankis anakasthesa eperxen pondos theafevgi teen etian. Aphilon ton logon these cleon gynekos. Anemina tignomi in ethemin anarchitu logu epirasthin katalisa momu alikion kedoxis mathion evulisthin grapsa ton logon elis elenis signomi ton logon elenis men Encomium amon ge pegmion. Okay, cool. That is the end of this short little thing. It was actually written by Gorgias of Leontini. At least that is what we're reading. And now let's look at the chat. So I see it says I haven't subscribed till now. It just came to my feed now that I'm a subscriber. What are your views on spirituality? Do you believe in God, and what do you want to do in life? So very interesting discussion. So first off, thank you for subscribing. I'm glad it came up in your feed. You could tell me how in the world something Greek related came up in your feed. Maybe you study Greek. That would be interesting to know. I'm curious to know on your end. Do you study Greek? Something like that. As far as my views on spirituality, I think maybe we could start with the belief in the existence of God. I think what's important to note is that really there either is a God or there isn't. I think you could try to argue that there is some third option out there. Maybe there's like a super, I don't know what you would say, like an existence of God where he exists and doesn't exist at the same time, like a superposition. I think it's easy to just say either he exists or he doesn't. And I think with that being said, it would be, in my opinion, better to believe in a non-existent God and to treat him like he does exist than the opposite. And so, so that's sort of the position that I take, that I think that there are good reasons to believe in God, based on arguments of intelligent design. Where did we come from? We obviously came from somewhere. I think saying that it was God is sort of a good answer, where if God doesn't exist, I think it's actually a bigger problem. And so that being said, I think that the belief in God is something that, again, is a belief. It's not a proven fact, but that if God exists, I believe that it answers the questions to why we're here, what are we doing, better than to say there is no God. So, for instance, if God does not exist, I'd like to at least hope he exists. And if, for instance, God did exist, and say I was wrong on the other on the other side, and say there is this non-existing God, and I believe that he exists, I don't see there's ever going to be a problem with somebody like me. There is no God, but I believe he exists. On the opposite, if I don't believe in God and he really does exist, that is something that a lot of people would say would cause a lot of problems, where you would either end up going to hell, which nobody wants to go there, or having just this paradox where God's up there and he sees you and he loves you, but you just don't believe in him. And so I think that it's easier for me to say, hey, maybe he exists, maybe he doesn't exist. I'm going to say he does exist, and I'm going to live my life in the belief that he exists. And if I ever would find out that I'm wrong, I don't care. Okay. And then the next question: what do you want to do in life, and do you like reading books? So, I'll do the books first because and that's kind of probably kind of lead for what I want to do in life. So the books I did, yes. As you can see, if you do scroll back on at least my live streams, I've live streamed a lot of ancient Greek texts specifically, where I've read them aloud on my YouTube channel. And thank you. Let's just say to answer the question, do you like reading books? It's maybe more the information that I get from the books that I think is helpful and I like. The reading process, I would say, comes to me maybe sometimes more difficult than most. When I was really young, I struggled in reading. I can't say that I was ever like really good at reading, and I still am a very slow reader. But maybe that's why I ended up enjoying things like studying Greek and Latin, because I do end up reading things very slowly. And I'm trying to get better, like streaming this where I'm reading this text aloud. It helps me to get better at reading text aloud, because I think that to some people, maybe reading's more, it comes naturally to them. For me, maybe not so much. So I have to do extra to make reading come more naturally to me. So hopefully that explains that. As far as which books, though, on the other hand, do you like ancient history or just languages? So I think of them all as like one package deal. So for instance, over the last few days, I was really trying to dive deep into the beginning of Homer's Iliad. So I have this copy by Robert Fagel. And so basically, I was a classics major. I had gotten a bachelor's degree in classics and now working on a master's. And I had never read the Iliad, period. And so I decided I needed to actually read it. And so anyways, I decided, well, I want to have a good English translation, open it up, hear things like rage goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to see what does it say in the Greek. And so I have this copy that I got from a priest 2 weeks ago, along with a bunch of books they donated to me, where it is a grammar, old used copy from some library. And so so anyways, I wanted to make sure that I was understanding the Greek as well. And when I do read literature, I always like to understand the original. So where am I from? I'm from Indiana, and I am 29 years old. And I have never had somebody guess my age as 29. I usually have people guess my age between 17 and 24 or 5. So that is that. So I would say the reason I like the ancient languages is because I'm able to understand the text better. And the reason that I like to understand the text sort of started for me when I was younger, having an interest in the Bible and the New Testament. I got interested into in a guy named William Tyndale, who was the first to translate the Bible from Greek to English back in the 1500s. And so then I actually started to think like, oh, okay, this is interesting. He had studied different languages. He had basically provided a lot of translated material to the general public before he got killed by King Henry VIII. And so that started me on an adventure to say, okay, well, maybe I need to go past the English back to these original languages, and really going from the religious texts as my starting point. I started to realize that the average student of ancient Greek in the, say, the 1500s was not only reading the Bible, but also Plato and Aristotle and a lot of other texts as well. You like reading all sorts of the books or only Greek language based books? That's a good point. Well, let me just say that Today I met a monk that was I guess you would call him a Hindu monk on the college campus, and he ended up giving me this book that is Sanskrit, a bunch of the Vedas, and I don't know if I could show you the whole thing, um, but this entire box he donated to my library so that I would have plenty of Sanskrit Hindu material as well. So 3 a.m. in my country. Okay, well, I don't know if you're waking up or going to bed, but yes. So, anyways, this is my Sanskrit textbook. I've studied Sanskrit. This is my Sanskrit dictionary. I do like other languages. You know what I am Hindu to? Oh, you are Hindu. Okay, interesting. So I've studied Sanskrit. I can say Sanskrit's very difficult, a lot harder than ancient Greek. And so I would say that maybe I'm not as far along in my studies. I have an interest in a lot of things, but I would say that Greek, I started when I was 11. I'm 29, so 18 years. Wow, that's a long time. 18 years of studying ancient Greek has gotten me to a pretty decent level. And even Latin started when I was 14, so 15 years. And Hebrew as well. But Sanskrit, oldest language in the world, I think it's one of those languages that I do want to do more to improve Sanskrit. And there are a lot of easy connections. What I have at least learned from studying Sanskrit is that I got to understand ancient Greek better. Actually, that the way that the textbook was designed, it put all the verbs in different classes. These verbs go in this class. These verbs go in this class, and I actually learned that certain grammars from Harvard in ancient Greek categorize the verbs the same way. And so, for instance, a verb like what it would be like lumpati or something. Lumpati, there's an M, lumpati, but that M is like just like sandwiched in the middle and it's like not actually part of the root. Greek does the same. There's like a word lamvano, and the M or me in lamvano disappears in the past tense, elevone. Like what happened to the M? It's the same kind of pattern that happens in Sanskrit. So making those connections from Sanskrit to Greek, just realizing they're like Greek's not the only language that this happens to. Sanskrit's not. Having more of, I don't know, maybe like a community kind of aspect to be like, oh, you know, hey, Sanskrit has this and Greek. Somehow it just makes it click better. So that being said, I find Sanskrit helpful, even if I'm never going to be that good at Sanskrit. The better I get at Sanskrit, it improves my Greek exponentially. So that's that. And maybe someday I'll be able to, you know, sight read the Bhagavad Gita, read the Mahabharata in my sleep. Maybe we'll see. Many Greek gods resemble gods mentioned in ancient Sanskrit texts. Yes, I do think a comparative study would be something down my aisle. One thing you mentioned about a question, where am I going in life? I don't know quite yet. I think that what's difficult right now for me to decide is with the master's program I'm in, I'm getting really good at speaking Latin, studying ancient Greek, and then on the side, I have a private teacher for modern Hebrew. I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years. And so basically, I have these interests. And if I continue down the academic path of, say, getting a PhD, they want students in a PhD program to be very, very narrow. And so that's something that I find very difficult. So, for instance, say I wanted to have a PhD specifically down the narrow path of ancient Greek. I don't know that Sanskrit would be something that I could dedicate my time to study, but there are possibilities. There are like comparative linguistic studies, and there could be some Sanskrit that I could take doing a PhD. But the question is, you know, with a PhD, they want you to focus on one narrow issue, and I don't like doing that. In some ways, I like to broaden it. That's why I'm interested in Sanskrit and let's read the Mahabharata together versus some scholars who would say, I'm a classicist. I don't know what a Mahabharata, whatever is. What are you talking about? Are you financially independent? Financially independent in the sense that this is someplace that I rented and I'm not living in my parents' basement. So that is true. As far as financially independent, like I'm a millionaire and I just can just, go do whatever I want. No, that's not the case. I do have to have some kind of job and do something to make money. Thankfully, right now, I have one more year in the university where I do have a part time job as a TA. So I am able to live off the scholarships and paycheck from the university at least for this year. I will graduate in May, and then after that, of course, I will not get another paycheck for the university after May unless I'm hired on as like a professor or something, which occasionally happens. So yeah, so I am still figuring out my way. One idea that I have thought, like one dream I have, is finding a study program in India where I could study Sanskrit spoken. I think it would be very interesting because where I'm at right now is a program that I study Latin spoken. Both my professors, my two main professors this semester, speak Latin. They want us students speaking to each other in Latin. So I think it'd be highly interesting if I could move on to a program speaking Sanskrit and see if I could transition my brain from Latin to Sanskrit. That would be interesting. That being said, finances is definitely part of the situation. And so, yes, it's a very interesting conversation. Thank you for asking me the question. So basically, what I'm saying is I have ideas. I think it'd be interesting to get better at Sanskrit, really have a better understanding of Hinduism. I've thought about studying Arabic. Again, this would be something that I'd have to start from the scratch, try to understand Islam better. Be a lot of work. Potentially get some kind of graduate degree in theology. Maybe focus more on Christian to Jewish relations. I've done a lot of work with just comparing Christianity and Judaism. So that's something that I have a pretty high starting point. But I do have interest in other religions as well, other sacred texts, and also just history. Okay, so it doesn't have to be the Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't have to be that we're reading the Bible. It could also be Livy's History of the Roman Republic, the Romans, and the history of Alexander the Great, and that kind of thing. So you say, come visit India. There are many things to explore in India, regardless of the nativity that people have created about in India and on social media. So yes, I did. I did visit India once upon a time. Can't say I had the best experience. I want to come back and have a better experience. That unfortunately, my parents had wanted to be missionaries in India, and let's just say that they ended up getting tricked by a bunch of scammers. They had multiple different Indian claiming to be Christians, steal a bunch of money, and unfortunate situation. Okay, so they ended up giving up the missionary idea, coming back to India. Indiana. Indiana. It sounds like India. Coming back to Indiana, and then living back in America. But I had been to India for 6 weeks back in 2013, and yeah, I mean, there's fraudulent people all over the place. Unfortunately, India is has no exemption of that. And so it is what it is. I definitely say I learned a lot from being in India. When I was in India, though, I didn't know anything about the Bhagavad Gita. I didn't know anything about Sanskrit. I was in Andhra Pradesh. Spent time in what is that city called? Flew into New Delhi, but not Mumbai. Anyways, it'll come to me. s- s- no, there was a little village that we were in for a few weeks, but we didn't stay there too long after we realized we were scammed. Um, it's the capital. Let me look this up real quick. Capital of Andhra Pradesh. Uh, Amavarti? No, that's not right. Um, Hyderabad. Oh, okay. So Andhra Pradesh, we weren't even in the same. Andhra Pradesh was where the one little village was, but we were in a different. We were in Hyderabad for a long time. So, yeah. So I went around Hyderabad. Um, Spent a lot of time walking around Hyderabad, getting to know the city a little bit. Being the only white person, which was interesting. And so, yeah. So definitely, I had some good times in India. I had some bad times in India, and I definitely think it'd be cool to go back to India. You are in the south, yeah. I want to go to the north. I want to experience the north. There are definitely things about Indian culture that I thought were good, some that I thought were bad. I mean, in India, you just pee on the side of the road, and at first, I thought that was crazy. But if I think about it in other ways, I mean, uh, in some ways it's more practical. So I think that just having multicultural experience and realizing, like, I mean, even something as crazy as, like, in India, you just pee on the side of the road if you have to go, and in America, you could get arrested for that, and you got to find a toilet, and it's like maybe a lot more work. And you don't think about that when you're just raised in America, but when you're in India, you're like, huh, okay, there's another world out there, and people do things differently, and sometimes just the realization that not everything happens the way that it happens here in your house or your hometown is helpful. So not just socially, but religiously, and a lot of different things. I think it at least helped me to think outside of the box. So um, India is definitely one place I want to go. Probably somewhere up north. You could tell me if you have any suggestions of where would be a good place up north to visit. But other times and places, I mean, I've traveled to somewhere around 14 countries, and I've never been to Greece. And since I've studied ancient Greek a lot, I do think Greece would be something that would be a good place to go. That's to say, I'm talking like I have millions of dollars and I could just, go wherever. I don't. So that's another thing. What are your thoughts on Muslims? Don't you think they're too extremist? Well, first off, um, Muslims are there's approximately 2 billion Muslims. Okay, if you look at statistics worldwide, there's over 2 billion Christians, maybe somewhere around 2 billion Muslims. And so I think that the first thing that should be considered is just that being about a quarter of the population of the whole planet. That there's about a quarter of the population Christian, a quarter of the population are um, Muslim as of today. And so that being said, there definitely are extremists in the Muslim category. That's not to say that Jews don't have extremists and Christians don't have extremists as well. But I do know that at least in the modern world, there's definitely a stereotype on Muslim extremists. What I can say is that not every Muslim is an extremist, and this is a very important thing to differentiate between, because I have a professor. I don't take any class with him, but I know a professor on campus that is the professor in charge of the Islamic studies and the Arabic studies. And I visited the mosque where he attends and listened to one of his kind of Islam 101 classes that he taught at the mosque. And it actually seemed pretty similar to Christianity. He was talking about how God forgives you your sins, how you need to confess your sins to Allah, and how He's the most merciful, the most just. And there was a lot of reminiscence of Christianity and a lot of Judaism. And I have met in Jerusalem. I've traveled there 7 times, and I've met Muslims in Jerusalem who are very kind, very generous, and very hospitable. And one Muslim specifically is a person who lives in Jerusalem, in a hostel, and his family has owned this hostel for about 500 years. And let's just say that he is one of the most welcoming, most friendly young men. He's about my age. And I met him first when I was probably about 18, stayed at the hostel, spoke. We talked a lot about theology, about the Crusades, about Saladin, one of the Arab, or maybe he's Kurdish. Anyway, Saladin and the Crusades. And basically, there were really pious Muslims in the Crusades during some of the time. There were also pretty evil people. Like there were times when the Muslims apparently would brand Christians like cattle, and so that's kind of what started the Crusades. But there was also times and places where the Christians would be very evil to the Muslims, and vice versa. So I think the main thing to learn is not that either Islam or Christianity is right or wrong, but that there are extremists in both categories, and there are also really nice, friendly people in both categories, and that there needs to be a lot of consideration between what religion somebody is and which side of those two extremes are they. Are they a Muslim that is really friendly, or Christian that's really friendly? Or are they a Muslim or a Christian that's really wicked and evil? And because there are both sides, that needs to be considered. So for me, like for instance, I'll be best friends with a friendly Muslim, a friendly Jew, like a nice, compassionate Hindu. But if there's a Muslim that's an extremist, I'm not going to be friends with him any more than a Christian who is a radical, like kill all the Jews kind of Christian. I'm not going to be friends with him. What's your thoughts on Islam extremists? I can suggest some places up north. Have you ever read the Quran or the Bible? So the Bible the most, because I grew up as Protestant at first, reading the Bible, but I'm also Jewish on my dad's side, and so studied a lot of Hebrew. And the Quran, I've only read it in English. And let's just say that there's some parts that I really think is good. The main thing that really differentiated the Quran from the Bible, in my opinion, was just the fact that it keeps repeatedly saying that God does not have a son and there is no son of God, where according to Christianity, Jesus was the son of God and God does have a son. And so that's the main thing. And I think what makes it difficult, especially if somebody is unbiased trying to determine this, what makes it difficult is that if you take the Old Testament as your starting point, there are very limited times and places that you can find things like Son of God. So, for instance, there is one place, I believe it's in the Proverbs, that it talks about like who's laid the foundation of the world. It's obviously trying to say this is God. Okay, God's the one who did this. Who established the world with his wisdom? It's God. And it says, what is his name and the name of his son? So obviously, this proverb is making it out like whoever this is, which is obviously God, has a son. Well, it's one place in the Old Testament. There's another place in Daniel where Nebuchadnezzar talks about the fourth person in the burning fiery furnace and says that he is like Bar Elohim, okay, the son of God. It could be argued that in the biblical times, there was a concept of a divine son of God before Jesus Christ. And I think because of the Christian faith latching onto this, it's very, very easy to say that it had to be something before Jesus' time period. There was some type of a son of God prototype or idea of something or someone being the son of God. But we don't know too much before the start of Christianity. So I think because of that, Islam and Judaism can both have sort of a denial of God having a son because of limited information prior to the start of Christianity mentioning God having a son. So you could say, well, maybe in the Proverbs, instead of it being what is his name and the name of the son being Jesus, maybe the son's name is like, Adam, for instance, because he was born from God or something like that. Or a son of God for Nebuchadnezzar, you could say, well, maybe Nebuchadnezzar being a pagan, maybe he was talking about like a demigod, and maybe he wasn't actually talking about Jesus. So you could argue that those instances are not talking about Jesus for a Son of God reference. So that being said, I think that both the Quran and also the Hebrew Bible, they could be seen as compatible. 2 billion people that consider themselves Muslim do see them as compatible, and where they are not compatible, those side with the Quran, saying that the Bible has a problem. But that being said, they could also not be compatible, and I think the very way that some people will try to put them together and other people will say they're not compatible, because that's the case. That is the reason why there are Christians, Muslims, and Jews in the world, and that they're not right now going to have a big meeting and say, let's just solve our differences. The differences are differences big enough that they can't just solve them. According to Quran, Allah is the only true God, and all other gods believe, are false. That's true. And the thing is that is also what the Christians believe, and that's also what the Jews believe, that there is one true God and all the other pagan gods are false. That is true. The biggest thing, though, is that within Islam, they do not believe that Jesus is considered the Son of God. They believe Jesus is a very, very important prophet, and that he was created by God, and that Mary had a virgin birth. And so it was a divine birth that caused Jesus to be created in Mary's womb. But according to the Christians, Christianity teaches that Jesus was actually begotten by the Father, and that the Father God has this son. And so that's something that, according to the differences in the starting point, Christianity and Islam can never be the same, because they have the different premises. According to some of the church fathers, they consider Islam as the 100th heresy of the church. Of course, Islam started many hundreds of years after Christianity. And so one reason that I would say you could argue that Christianity is the truth is because Christianity began at the time Jesus lived. There were writings from Jesus' own time period, where Islam, of course, is much later. Now, on the contrary, those who are Muslim would say that, well, the Quran was given straight to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that it was 600 years later from the time of the New Testament. And so because of that, they would say, well, the New Testament had somehow gotten corrupted by the people. And so this is a replacement. And I would say we have good reason to doubt that. But again, because both could be argued, I believe that is the reason why right now there are both Muslims and Jews and Christians. And either of those three options are options that you can argue and do a very good job arguing on. And can you answer the third last question? Let me see. What is that third last question? Have you ever read the Quran? Yes. Or the Bible? Yes. According to the Quran, is the only true God. I did that. Have you ever read the Quran? What about I could suggest a place up north? What are your thoughts on Islam? John the extremist. I think I covered all of these questions. The Bible I've read completely in the King James Version, in English, but also in Hebrew. I've read Genesis many, many times, but also I've read through the Psalms in Hebrew. I've read through Jeremiah several times. I like the prophets. I like the kings. YouTube is not showing you the comment. I don't know why. Maybe try typing it and phrasing it in another way. If it's something that YouTube thinks is taboo, sometimes it might hide it. But feel free to word it a different way, because I'm interested in whatever the comment is. Like I said, I've met really wonderful Muslims, really wonderful Christians, really wonderful Jews and Hindus, and I think that all of us had a desire to attain the truth and to want to know who God is, and have a love for God, and that if the most sincere people, um, with the most sincere heart can come to the end of their journey, and some of them are Muslims, some of them Christians, some of them Jews, some Hindus and Buddhists and whatnot. It shows me that it's not as easy as just put all the facts down before you, and those who are good will just automatically choose the right religion, and those that are evil will choose the wrong one. Um, it's more complicated than that. I definitely think it's way more complicated than that. And because I think it's more complicated than that, I think that there does need to be a lot more tolerance, than there is, between religions. And I know that's something that's easy to say, easy to talk about, but I don't think many people actually understand what religious tolerance is, because religious tolerance doesn't mean that you don't have to believe anything. I think that, for me, for instance, I converted to Orthodox Christianity, and I can be an Orthodox Christian and um, believe in Jesus, believe in the Orthodox faith 100%. And I can still, and toleration maybe is not even that good because it almost has a bad connotation. I could be friends with, I could say, I could be an Orthodox Christian, hold the Orthodox faith, and be friends with a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, and an atheist even. Um, and I don't think many people realize that somebody like me could have deep friendships, close friendships with religious people from other walks of life, um and uh and not be offended. So it's interesting. It's still not showing any comment. Let me rewrite as the last thing you said. Is there anything else that is there anything else that you're wanting to say? I see two people are still watching the stream, so I'll hang out here for a little bit if I can. Appreciate you keeping up with the comment. Is my last comment visible? It's only visible. Let me read it. It says, "I think YouTube is not showing you the comment. Let me rewrite." And then, is my last comment visible? Those are the last comments I have. And then before that is, can you answer the third last, including this comment? And then one comment before that is, according to the Quran, is the only God, is Allah is the only true God, and the others are pagan or false. And then before that, it just says the Bible. So the Bible one would be the one that would be third from the end, and I don't think that's the one you were referring to. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add you as a moderator. I'm going to try this. I'm going to add you as a moderator and see if it lets you have more commenting status. See if that works. I don't know. If it doesn't, I'll just thank you for trying, and hopefully you can always send me an email also. Yeah, feel free to send me an email if I'll put it in the chat, and teacher. Also, if you look my name up on Google, you can see my university page, and my university page, it has a different email, and I answer to both. You can always use, let's say, this email. Sorry, that's just the community page. Just to see my little bio from my university. It shows a different email, and I answer to this email as well. And so if you have further questions or comments, you want to reach out to me, feel free to use one of those emails that I posted in the chat, or find me at the University of Kentucky online, and I will definitely do my best to respond within 24 hours. Usually I'm pretty fast. Some professors, they say 24 and they mean 48. When I say 24, sometimes it could be within 2 or 3 minutes. But if I'm busy, I might put it on the back burner or get it back within a day or two. So yeah, feel free to to reach out to me anytime. Thank you for subscribing. Usually, what I stream on my YouTube channel is right now a lot of text that I'm reading, but they can get kind of boring. Who wants to be, reading a text about Gorgias of Leontini's Encomium of Helen of Troy? So also I do have some other things on my channel, either promoting Latin speaking or kids who speak Latin, teaching spoken Latin, other things theologically related, how Jews and Christians should uh, interact with each other and that kind of thing. What does doing something big in life mean to you? I would say what doing something big in life, well, what that would mean to me is some of my friends were teaching Latin at a school in Tennessee, and the kids actually were speaking Latin on the playground. They were playing and having fun in Latin. Unfortunately, the school closed down. I was there the last week. It closed down. And what I would love to see in the future would be a school that has a lot of money donated to it to support it. Okay. Something that's not on the edge, somewhere where kids could have that type of enthusiasm, learning ancient languages and theology and ancient history, all in a very, I want to say safe environment, but what I mean by safe environment is just that it's an environment that is a good one. Something that I really liked about this environment where the school kids were speaking in Latin is that I didn't hear any bad words, any cuss words in English, and I think that oftentimes um, schools acquire this lingo where they're like, oh, all the kids talk this way, and this is just how we talk. And I think that is problematic. Where I think a school needs to be a place where the accepted way of speaking is something like Latin. And I think it's incredible, and it could happen. What I witnessed with my own eyes and talked to these kids and the teachers myself proved that it is possible. But the fact that a school like that had to shut down because they didn't have enough money and they didn't have enough kids shows that it needs to have the right environment, the right setup, the right donors, and it's not something that's just going to happen without a lot of time and effort. Is my comment still not visible? I'm not talking about the big in life comment. I'm talking about the comment just before that. The comment just before that is I have written it again in English. So yeah, I do not know what's happening. That's why I put my email there. Please, please, please copy and paste the email somewhere that you're going to find it. So at the end of the stream, when I press end, I don't know if all these comments are going to disappear. So make sure you have my email. Send me an email and let me know what comment is not there, because now I'm curious and I'd definitely be interested in talking to you. Again, if you are curious and want further information on anything, if it is academically related or not, I also have a Zoom platform in my student hours, office hours. And so feel free also to reach out to me if you would want to meet with me on Zoom during my office hours. Usually no students are present. So that is another thing that I could always answer the question that isn't showing up on Zoom. Why don't you have the ambition for lots and lots of money? I think the thing is that the money is in most people's mind key to success or key to other things, and to me, I think that the more important things of life are having a good mind, a good soul, and money is a tool, and I think money should be used as a tool to not only improve oneself. So, for instance, I would have a better mind and a better soul, but also to help other people improve their minds, improve their souls, and then the way they interact with other people. So, for instance, if I am noticing that somebody is, mistreating somebody else, there's two things that you can do about it. One is, use physical force. They're beating somebody up. You have to restrain them. But another way is to say, wait, why is this person being so mean to this other person? Is it some kind of maybe a misinformation problem? It's how it happens with hatred between Christians and Jews, or between Muslims and Jews, or Muslims and Christians. A lot of times there's misinformation. People have the wrong starting point, the wrong stopping point, the wrong everything, really misunderstand what the other party is. And so I believe that studying certain things, especially trying to understand each other better, is the way to make the world a better place and be at peace with everybody. And so that being said, I think it's important to have enough money to sustain oneself. As far as having a family and having kids, I believe people should at least do their best to support their family and kids. At some time in my life, I would love to have a wife and kids myself, and have enough money to afford to keep them, or sustain them. I shouldn't say keep them, not like I'm giving them, putting them anywhere, but to sustain them. And so I think I definitely have a desire to have enough money to live off of. But I don't think it needs to be the amount that would make me rich. I think that it needs to be enough, and anything that's more than enough can be donated to charity, and be given to other people that have less. So that being said, even this monk that piously gave me these Sanskrit texts, and everything. He said they were printed at his monastery for around $200 face value. I've promised him that I'm going to pay him $500 to give him an extra donation for the monastery, and make sure that I'm not just covering the cost of the material, but also covering some additional expenses as well. And so I do believe that charity is important as well. Okay, you say, I'd love to talk with you again, my friend. Don't ever let this enthusiasm die. Always be happy. I'm gonna let it go too. I mean, let the stream finish the stream. Please reach out to me by email, like I said, to cover the question that's not showing. I have absolutely no idea why I would do this. I'm not offended by anything. I mean, you could tell me anything at all. No, not for one book. Did you see the whole box of books? That's these are about half. I won't take all the books out of the box, but yeah, there's a lot of books. So yeah, I'm not gonna pay $500 for one book unless it's 500 years old. I have a few books that I spent that much money, but they're very, very old books, and so I only spend $500 on a book if it's really that kind of book. Usually, if it's in Greek and Latin, parallel columns, printed like maybe Paris, France, or something, 1600s, 1500s, then I'll spend $500 on the book. Otherwise, I don't spend that kind of money. Okay. That being said, reach out to me anytime. If for some reason I can't answer your questions on YouTube, like it's saying, like I said, I can answer it by email or even on Zoom. It's not the Bhagavad Gita. It's Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, it is. And so the Bhagavad Gita, I already have several copies. I actually have the entire Mahabharata. It's like this big on my bookshelf. So yeah, let's just say that I have a lot of Sanskrit books. I showed you my dictionary. I showed you my grammar. I even have, what was I going to say? I have the Bhagavad Gita in Latin. That was what I was gonna say. So I'm a little bit nerdy like that. I have like the one translation of the Bhagavad Gita in Latin. So I also think like you know what, maybe read the Bhagavad Gita in Latin sometime. So yeah, so that's that. Okay, thank you so much. I'm gonna end the stream now. Appreciate everything, and I'm gonna say goodbye and hope to see you later in another stream. Until then, shalom, Lee Throat, and I guess I'll say Valete.